Eurosport, MP and Silver, Fox, 10 Sports, ESPN Star, Sky, I'm sure plenty more besides Taj TV, just remember that one. You've done the rounds. Safe to say you've probably never worked in an environment quite like Facebook though. Is it true what they say that you wear a hoodie every day now?
Yeah, basically it is. I think the biggest selling point about this job is that I can actually dress like I would dress at home when I go to work. The negative is that everyone's about 20 years younger than me, so I might stand out from the crowd a little bit, but it's certainly somewhere that is a totally different atmosphere, you know, totally different experience, really bright, intelligent, challenging questions every day, and a really interesting culture just to be part of. You know, I think without bigging myself up, I read Sheryl Sandberg's book just before I took the job, and she said I wanted to get on the rocket ship, and I felt a bit like that, you know, in terms of just such an interesting experience to go through, and one that definitely challenges you about the way you think about your job, the way you think about sport, the way you think about how you operate. So, you know, it's a really big learning experience and proves that even at my age you can still keep learning stuff.
The onboarding process at Facebook is famous and extensive, I think. Tell us about your experience of that, and are you fully onboarded?
No, I think I'm not fully onboarded in that I've still got loads and loads of courses to go through. And yeah, it is different, you know, and it is something where I've been in a lot of organisations and people talk about the culture and they talk about creating an environment for you to work in, but nothing like Facebook, where culture clearly is hugely important. Culture in all sorts of different ways. You know, you go through the onboarding, the second presentation is about the food. You know, you get free food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and it's really good food. But that's a sign of that environment where they try and look after so many other things in your life so you can get on with doing the stuff that really your brain should be active doing. So really different place to work and hugely interesting. And the other thing that is remarkable for me is that it's so big, you know, and sport is so little within the so big that you're also fighting for attention and space and engineering support in a way that is a bit like the old world of terrestrial TV and the BBC trying to get a half-hour slot for highlights at midnight. You know, Facebook is mammoth, and that's why the potential of the job is so huge, because it touches so many people every day. You know, 2.2 billion people every month using Facebook, not to mention the billion on Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger. I mean, it's an incredible canvas to be able to try and operate on. Look, I think, I don't know, is a real question. I think, you know, very much Facebook looks at opportunities and looks at areas for development. And, you know, the business changes incredibly fast, you know, and that's part of the job that makes it really interesting. You have a conversation about Oculus and what they're doing one day, you talk about vertical video on Instagram the next. And these are all new areas for sport to be in. So, you know, it's definitely not something where you could say in 6 months' time we will be doing this. You know, it's very much a question of test, learn, look at the data, move again. And that's a fascinating bit to be in, you know, and the quality of the data in terms of, you know, looking at behaviour, what really changes behaviour, I think that makes it a really interesting space to be in. And one that, you know, I think that the message to the sports industry is very much look and see how you can interact with this, because it's about you using the platform and learning about the platform. And that's not a 3-week tutorial and then that's it for the next 10 years, because the platform will be different in 6 months and different in 12 months. So it's an ongoing learning process, both for me and I think for the whole sports industry in terms of how do we use it best.
You've been a senior sports media executive across the world for some years now, but I think it's fair to say that at heart you're a proper sports fan and you're sort of brought up as or you sort of broke through as a journalist and a commentator, so the actual fabric of the product is, I assume, really important to you. And the thing about Facebook is that you've got the opportunity to totally reimagine how that product might come across. An exciting prospect for you? I mean, what can you tell us about how sport might be viewable on Facebook in the future?
Yeah, I think look, hopefully, you know, being a sad, obsessed fan is useful sometimes. And I think in particular in terms of thinking about Facebook, of what will that viewing experience be and how can you make it better? You know, it's relatively easy for any organisation to go out there and buy sports rights. You know, you just put down some stupid big check and the rights will flow. The challenge is to actually use it sensibly, you know, look after the brand, look after the sport you're working with, and give a better experience for the fan. And I think, you know, that's the real challenge of the Facebook job, is to think about it as how can fans enjoy their content more on Facebook or within the Facebook group of apps. And therefore that unleashes lots of different potential for future transactions or future experiences. You know, I think it's easy to talk about Facebook as like this giant thing and you know, it's huge and it's going to be brilliant. But the bit that really interests me is like, okay, the practical change you can make. And one thing that we've done as a trial is a really good example of what I think my job is when you normally go onto Facebook and you see a live video, you'll see a bug that says live and a CVC, a number of concurrent views, which is great, right? And particularly when they're Facebook Live, it sort of makes you feel like you're part of a wider world. And there's 10,000 people watching this press conference, that's a great thing. But I looked at it and thought, well, you know, if you're watching live sport on a mobile, that isn't a great thing because it's quite a chunk of the screen. So we've been able to work with the engineering team who've been hugely supportive on this and said, okay, let's try an experiment where that isn't there. And we take off the live bug and we take off the CVC so that you can see more of the action, you don't cover up any graphics. And that sort of is a small practical example of change, but something that I think hopefully helps the viewing experience. You know, it's great that Facebook allows you to chat with your friends and to put emojis over the screen and to do all these different things that you can do. But I think it's also important that you can swipe it off. You know, there are moments when you don't want noisy chatter, when you want to be quiet and you want to pay attention. And thinking about what we can do and turning it into a good viewing experience, I think is a really interesting challenge. So I get asked all these questions about the sports rights. I think as much at the moment, my focus is on, okay, how do you actually watch it? What do you get out of it? What's it possible to get out of it?
Do you think there's a sport at this stage? Do you think there's a sport that works best in that kind of interactive Facebook environment?
I think it's the sport you care about most, right? You know, so for me, watching Derby as a live stream is great, and the fact that I can chat to people in a Derby County forum at the same time is part of my viewing experience as I watch that stream around the world. And the potential of taking the sports that you really care about, having experiences where you're chatting to informed fans who are also watching that, whether that be on Facebook or even in a VR environment, I think, you know, the potential is huge. You know, do some sports work better than others? Yeah, maybe. You know, and I think that's again something that we're learning. You know, but there are certainly some sports that are much better in this environment than on linear television. You know, surfing is a good example where you don't know what time it's going to start. You know, sometimes what day it's going to start. It's all about when the climatic conditions are right. So being able to say, okay, we will go live immediately the event starts and we'll send out alerts via a Facebook environment is a really nice way of making that viewing experience better. So there are some really simple, basic things that we can do better already. It's then a question of building on that and making it a better experience.
Peter Hutton, thank you very much.